Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics on Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show today. Welcome aboard, Michael Rudnin, AVQ. Thank you guys for all being here today. We are going to have a great show. The show today is a rant. It's a rant as far as what we are doing as a country. What do we want out of this country? What are we going to allow them to do to this country? Let me get the program started, and then I'll go into exactly the reasons why I decided to do the program the way I am doing the program. But I ask you to stay with me. But most importantly, what I ask you to do right now is to please share the program, share the show, because we are going to touch on an important topic. And it's all one topic, to put it bluntly. It is COVID-19. But it's a bit deeper than just COVID-19. So I ask you to stay with us. I ask you to share this program. If you're just joining us, I see a whole bunch of you are on right now. Please, Gisela Aguilar Wallace. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Welcome aboard. Look, folks, please share before you get started, before you start listening. Please share the program. That is how we are going to get this most necessary message across. It's not occurring sufficiently on mainstream media. It's not occurring sufficiently elsewhere. So when I ask you to share, it's not just for the sake of sharing. Title of the show today is America is committing suicide. Can we pull back from going over the edge? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can pull back from going over the edge. But how? That is what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss, first of all, what's really happening, but we're also going to discuss how not to completely go over the edge. All right. Continuing. Bad leaders, willful ignorance, and science aversion create chaos. America has hit the trifecta. Too many are unknowingly committing suicide. So what's next? It is difficult as those with clear thoughts, wisdom, and foresight clearly see our country in the process of suicide. I do not use the term lightly. I use the suburbs that I live in as a microcosm of America, weighted accordingly. As positive as I am, as positive as I always try to remain and make sure to remain, it is hard to put a spin on the slow but accelerating speed of America's suicide. Many of us think this is not something that could possibly happen to us. We are just too good. We are America. That will never happen to us. But it should not have happened to us, or it should not happen to us given our current economic state, our current state of might, our strength. It shouldn't have happened, but it is happening. The America that we think we are is on life support after purposefully using COVID-19 for a near fatal and increasing dosage. It is there. And that could be our demise. Today we rant with the expectation that it will cause most who listen to think about how to get to an antidote. And how do we get to an antidote? How do we get to an antidote? Welcome aboard, Breach MCP. Welcome aboard, Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard, Masticator AVQ. Chris Rocks. Let's see, Paul Fleming. And if I've missed you, forgive me. Just Jesus, ¿cómo estás? And para ver. I think Gisela Aguilar, Wallace, I think I mentioned you before. Anyhow, let me just play you something, because this is really the genesis of it all. I want you to listen to this little piece here. I don't know if I processed it right. Let's go ahead. This is the genesis. Check this out.
Our country grapples with an absence of strong federal leadership in the face of the worst public health crisis in the modern era. This nation is sadly not alone on that score. The Associated Press among those pointing out that a new set of anti-establishment populist leaders around the world have failed to meet the challenge of the coronavirus pandemic. Among them, Trump and some of his global allies. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, for one. Don't forget the presidents of Brazil and Mexico. Notably, all four of those countries, alongside Russia, are facing soaring cases of coronavirus as many of our European allies continue to see a well-managed decline.
I'm not sure why they put MLP inside of that, the president of Mexico. He's a populist on the left, but I've never known him to be a denier in the form that Donald Trump and all these other guys are. And yes, it is true, Bridge. The countries run by women are all doing fine. We're looking at the Scandinavian countries that are run by women. We're looking at, I think it is New Zealand that's run by a very young woman. We look at Angela Merkel in Germany, and she's doing a marvelous job. In fact, the European Union just got back out of they had their meetings where they decided that they were going to make their citizens whole and they were going to make sure that the countries remained afloat. And in fact, our woman here, Nancy Pelosi, had a hell of an admonition for the Republicans today. Check this out.
1,700 years ago, he said, any government that is not formed to promote justice is just a bunch of thieves. Let's use our time to remove all doubt that we're going to do the right thing by the American people so they can meet the needs of their families. Everybody wants to talk about being family friendly. Let's not squawk about $600.
I'm Egberto Woolley. Let's not squawk about $600 because what's going on, I don't know if you've been up with the news right now. Over 2 months ago, Democrats passed a stimulus package, $3 trillion, which is not enough, but it's much better than things are right now. And with that $3 trillion, there was support for schools, which would have included the monies necessary for schools to tool up to kind of isolate their kids, make sure there's a lot of PPEs, make sure that there's all the necessary things to make sure that these kids could go to school where the virus was under control. They could go to school, not a problem. They also included the unemployment compensation, and I don't recall right now if they also had that stipend that they gave everybody. In other words, a blanket amount of money that they gave everybody. Well, anyhow, that's $3 trillion. It went to the Senate. It sat on McConnell's desk. They went home for 2 months. Okay. We all knew, anybody who studies or have modicum of knowledge of economics knew that there was going to be an issue with employment and that the economy simply couldn't recover quickly. It's science. It is science. Okay? So what happened? The Republicans go away for several months, 2 months, and they come back, and it's not till now that they sit down and they're trying to hammer out a bill to help the American people. Just now. And they can't come to an agreement within the Republican Party themselves. Forget about the $3 trillion that the Democrats are requesting. The Republicans are unable to come up with an agreement among themselves as to how to help all the Americans that are going to be in trouble at the end of this week, meaning tomorrow. Because beginning of August, they have no rent. Beginning in August, a large percentage of Americans do not have the money to pay rent, let alone the money to feed themselves and their kids. Why? It's not that they're lazy, lousy, or anything of that nature. It is simple. They're not working, and the reason they're not working is there's no work. So there's nothing for them to do. So what happens? instead of coming across with an emergency deal and saying, okay, since we didn't do our homework, and since Nancy Pelosi did hers with her crew 2 months ago, well, they call foul. After all, they did the work. We didn't. Let's just go ahead and pass it to help the American people. We lost our opportunity to put in our ideological request. Well, of course, that's not what happened. When they asked Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, are you going to have a bill ready at the end of the week? He didn't even say, no, we're working on it. He laughed. The pain of 20-something million people that are likely not to be able to afford their rent. He laughed. This Republican senator laughed. After he laughed, he said no. And they kept on negotiating and trying to figure out if they could come up with something. Guess what are some of the sticking points? Their big concern isn't making Americans whole. Their big concern isn't making sure that Americans have money in their pockets so that they can buy food and pay rent while we have this economy frozen to try to kill the virus so that we can back again have a vibrant economy. That's not what they're doing. The fight is about whether to give corporations indemnity. In other words, they want to make sure that if you are forced to go back to work and that corporation or that company puts you in an unsafe condition where you contract the coronavirus because of their negligence, not that you just contracted it, but that you contracted it because of their negligence, they want to protect corporations against that. In other words, you are nobody. You are just a slave, because if you happen to come and work for the way that I order you to work, they want to make sure. This is a sticking point in a bill. This is a sticking point. They want to make sure that you cannot sue them. Think about that, folks. But that's not the only thing. To show you that this is something that they only care about corporations. I mean, this one is going to drive you crazy as well. You know when Nancy Pelosi just said, well, stop worrying about $600, whether $600 is too much to give to the people. This is what she said. And this is what they are saying as well. They are saying the following. They said, we don't want to have a stimulus that pay every American that is on unemployment an extra $600 per month. And why is it that we don't want to do that? Because they will be making more than if they went back to work. And it's going to reduce the supply of slaves for the corporation if we continue to give them that money. Now, if you are a progressive like me, and you are somebody who believes in humanity first, what you would say is, wow, the government has instituted a policy that says the following. The bottom line that we will give people that $600. Now, if corporations want people to consider risking going out there to work, we'll have to match that and pay more. It's a suddenly, I mean, didn't we kind of believe in supply and demand and market forces and all that kind of stuff? In other words, it would tell corporations that's the floor. You want people to come and work for you, pay them more. And then they may consider it's worth the risk. But no. Corporations are saying, no, government, do not give these people too much money. Force them to have to come to work for me at a discount. People, you know, the way people, even the news, when the news is framing that, the news just, the mainstream media just comes out and says, well, the Republicans don't want to give $600 a month because, well, it will cause people to stay home and not go to work. Yeah, you're right. I'm not going to argue with that, but they're acting as if that is something that is wrong. Corporations make that deal all the time. People on welfare make that deal all the time. They say, let me do a financial analysis. Government pays this, corporation pays this. Maybe I should do the calculation. And people say, but wait a minute, the government is funded by taxes. Yeah, they are. But you know, our capitalist system is funded by much other things as well, right? In other words, when that capitalist system is running, they're putting my life at risk when I'm building that bridge. So it all works together. It all works together. So the government puts the floor down, $600 a week. Think about it, $600 a week. $600 a week is $31,200 a year, which should be a floor. Think about it. It should be a floor in our, based on, if we take a look at what people made back in 1970 and extrapolate that to today, $31,200 a year is much lower than what wages and wages should be. Exactly. How can you survive if rent is $1,000 a month? And that is what we're talking about. So if we take a look at what's going on here, we're taking a look at that the system run by the corporatocracy is putting this in. So when I talk about suicide now, America is going on suicide. These are the technicalities, right? But here's the suicide that I'm talking about. And this is very important. This is a suicide here. We have been getting, and by the way, you can give us a call at 346-248-7799, and the code is 254-600-9091 if you'd like to call in. Again, that is 346-248-7799. This is the next issue, people, and this is very important because the title of the show was, in fact, that we're committing suicide. And the suicide that we're committing is being affected based on our ignorance, right? In other words, we are led by dummies. I hate to put it that way. That Donald Trump is a leader that anybody listens to. That anybody possibly would listen to Donald Trump. Tells us that the training we've received in school, the training we've received or the education we've received from school, from college, from even our churches is suspect. Because it has not led us into knowing who we can depend on, can follow, can listen to. That anybody listens to Donald Trump. That anybody listens to and look, Donald Trump is genuinely dumb. He is. But the people around him aren't. The people around him are not. What's important? Yes, I'll do that to Rudnin. What is very important? Donald Trump is a front man that allows that has been shown people would follow. Again, if you followed us for the several years that we've doing that, you'd learn about the Powell Manifesto and how it was designed to make Americans dumb. The Powell Manifesto was designed to make Americans dumb. And when you see they talk about the first thing that they cut, whenever they cut schools, they say, well, the reason why we cut schools when we have budget problems is that school, it's so easy to, whenever you can cut a lot of money from schools because there's a lot of money that goes into there. But don't believe that. You can cut a lot of other things. The reality is we cut schools, and we've been cutting schools for a long time because we don't want Americans to be too smart. Because when they're too smart, they ask questions. And when they ask questions, you no longer could possibly have billionaires in a country. Because the billions that billionaires have is the abuse that they've inflicted on employees. It's not that they're worth what they're worth. It's the abuse they've inflicted on people. And when we come to that realization that America was designed since the Powell Manifesto to make you dumb, then you understand what's going on now. The problem is making you dumb does not assume you will have something like a coronavirus, COVID-19. You see, COVID-19 is one of those wild animals that you can't control. I can control a population with all kinds of isms, right? If I want to separate a set of populations, I can throw in some racism, I can throw in some sexism with a little touch of misogyny, and I can use all those different qualifiers to control things. And when if I want to get rid of racism, I just get the pastor. Right now, the biggest racists in this country are pastors, right? The biggest racists in America right now, and when I say racist, I mean the ones that are pushing that are pastors, church people, Christians. Those are the biggest promoters of racism right now, okay? The evangelicals. Now, how do I turn that off? I turn it off by just remember, the way religion is something like a dictatorship. You have blind loyalty to your pastor, to your church. That is why you always have had the alliance between the Republicans and the church, Donald Trump and the evangelicals, because the evangelicals don't get a chance to judge Donald Trump on his own merits. They judge Donald Trump based on what their pastor tell them about Donald Trump. So Donald Trump always makes sure to keep the pastors whole. And if you do that, you control all the people that are under the domain, under the dominion of that pastor. So with that, you get 20-something% of the population that are brainwashed by the church. And then you get another particular piece of the population that are brainwashed by all the isms. But the population is getting so smart that if you take a look, I should have made up Bobby Rodrigo's video in Portland. In Portland, all these riots that you're having, right? These Black Lives Matter riots are amazing because of the amount of non-black people in these riots. Now, maybe calling it riot. Did I call it a riot? I'm not talking about riots. I'm talking about protests. I'm sorry. I just picked up I just did the opposite of what the DHS secretary did. Anyway, the protests it's amazing that the protests in Portland, what it looks like. You see, the people are getting smart. They understand that all these isms are not real, right? They understand racism is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So the controllers know how to mix and match all these isms so that they can control you. So it slows down the suicide, or it just brings you to the brink of death, but it never gets you overboard, right? In other words, when we do all our magic, we get a recession or a deep recession out of manipulation of everything that we do, and we recover. And by the way, each time you pay for it, of course. Don't forget that. Every time we have a recession, depression, or whatever, it's the average rank and file American that pays for it. But, we have all these controlling things that we do. But now we have Corona. Corona is not the pandemic of the flu that we had back in the whatever that was earlier in the year. This is a multi-system virus. And this multi-system virus doesn't only attack and kill you. It does something that sometimes can be worse than killing you. It maims you. And that maiming is long lasting. I have relatives who've gotten COVID. The maiming by this virus is long lasting. So when they're counting the death rates as being that which is suicidal, or that not suicidal, that which tells us the severity of what this virus is doing to humanity, baby, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because what it means to America is the following, and this is where I talk about us committing suicide. When it comes to America, here's the following. A lot of people are dying, 145,000 right now, okay, or more than that. And actually, it's way more than that because all those people that have been dying at home, They've been dying in their homes and they're not tested to be seen that, okay, they're also coronavirus people. They don't, people don't realize that these are also people that have been killed by the coronavirus. But this is a multi-system disease that affects you. And in affecting you, it means that you are going to have these long, huge, standing diseases and illnesses as you get older, as you move on in life. And with a country that doesn't have single-payer Medicare for all, where everybody is covered without having to go bankrupt, guess what? That is exactly what happens. That is exactly what happens. No, I don't. That is not the type of suicide that I'm talking about, though, Bridge. Although, you know what you're talking about is true, but that is not the type of. I'm talking about a national suicide. Suicide means the killing of the dying of what we consider America. That strength that America represents, who America actually used to be, is almost dead. And that is what I'm talking. That is pretty much what I'm talking about. I guess I was a bit more figuratively than you are literal. Okay, but I understand exactly what you're saying there, and what you're saying definitely has merit, Breach. In fact, it's actually true, Breach. But yes, the loss of all of our. Okay, great. I'm glad. So anyhow, so that is what's occurring, right? But like I mentioned before, so the Paul Manifesto intent on making us dumb. It wants to ensure that we're in this place. Now, how can we get out of this? How can we possibly get out of this? When it comes, it starts also with the schools, but it starts with discipline. But just before I came onto the show, let's see. I like. Wait. Okay, Brish. All right. Here's the thing. I want to play this doctor. What she said, right? Because I think this is really the start. She's talking about schools, but it's deeper than schools, and I'll talk about that afterwards.
I'm going to say something that I think needs to bring us to catharsis, which is that we as a nation need to realize that we are not living in normal times. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and part of the ghost that we need to give up is this idea that every school-aged child of every age in every state can attend in-person school this fall. We just don't have the will, the resources, or the plan to pull that off. And even though the data around children is evolving, we're not in a data-free zone. We know now that older students, particularly over 10, could transmit this disease just as well as adults could. We know on American soil we have examples from summer camps in Missouri, in Arkansas, in Texas, where you've had clusters occur on summer camps with kids of every age. We also know that indoor, this disease tends to be a lot more effective in transmissions. The other part of this is there's a different reality for every school. A kindergarten in rural Massachusetts with low community transmission and the resources to make that distancing happen is much different than a metropolitan high school in Miami-Dade right now, where there's huge amount of cases and you have public schools that don't have the resources, and they're staring down this barrel. And it's completely perverse for the government to then say, if you don't follow this model that we have and you don't place your students and teachers at risk, we're not going to give you the funding to open safely. The reality is that we need to be humble and we need to sort of be flexible about how we open schools. A more realistic approach would be that in areas with high prevalence, we keep those schools closed. It's not all or nothing. For a couple of months, do more remote learning. Open schools, particularly for younger students in areas where there isn't a community transmission, learn the best practices and then apply that nationwide. And then states that have hotspots, when they've brought their outbreaks under control, we can apply that knowledge, the scientific knowledge, the physical knowledge. Maybe we have diagnostic technologies by that point that we can apply. Yes, we want schools to open and we want students to go back, but we have to do it not in a politically push manner, but a scientifically and publicly safe manner.
Brige, you're absolutely right. But first of all, I'm going to make your comment in a little bit. But here's the deal. Will, resources, or plan? She said we're in a different paradigm which we're in. We've never seen this type of thing in America before. And she points out we neither have the will, the plan, or the resources to do it. She's not completely correct when she says we don't have the resources. We do have the resources. We do have the resources. And yes, I like that neuropsych. We need to be humble. We need to be flexible. Absolutely so. Now, you know, Bridge said something that is so true. Fully mentioned that, mentioned that Trump's son is one of those. And I'm going to show you some notes for the show because it's, you tell people, I was thinking about that. I actually have a story about that. And they say, yeah, sure, Egberto, you sure had a story about that. And I had it, was one of the other items on the agenda. And here it is. I had it cut out for the 724 show. And here it is. If you notice, I have here, as Trump calls for schools to fully reopen, his son's school says it will not. That was the Common Dreams article that I was going to get to in a little bit. I decided to push this up since Brige mentioned about that. I have another article that is prescient, that was actually sent by one of our wonderful, wonderful listeners. Specifically, it was sent by, who sent it to me? I think it was sent by Melissa Noble. Melissa sent this article to me. Want you to check this out. It says, How the American Idiot Made America Unlivable. I'm just reading. Guys, I don't really call people idiot and stupid and all of that, even though, given the state of our country, it's hard not to give the correct description of what it is that's going on. And this article is great. It's an article in Medium called I'm going to repeat one more time. How the American Idiot Made America Unlivable. America is a poor country now in ways that are likely to be permanent. I want you guys to get that subtitle. America is a poor country now in ways that are likely to be permanent. That is suicide. Because the old America is dead. The old America is dead. Thank you, Michael Rudnin, for finding. I love Michael Rudnin. Michael can pick up those articles this quickly. It says New Zealand declared victory over coronavirus yesterday. Team New Zealand, Kiwis refer to themselves celebrating having a virus-free country. America, on the other hand, had close to 70,000 cases. 70,000 and exploding. Check that out. At that time, 70,000. What was the date of this article again? July 13th. Now, what the American, has done is to make it an impoverished country. Not just any kind of poverty, what you might call deep poverty. New Zealand has 0 cases of coronavirus. If America, they're spinning out of control. That's kind of poverty too, a poverty of public health. That's what we mentioned earlier before, right? The result of that attitude was a society poor in a gruesome and strange way, poor in public health itself. We expect much, much poorer societies to be impoverished in public health, but we're not. I am from what's called a third world country, right? A third world country, they say, Panama, a third world country. Everybody in Panama has something called Seguro Social. It's Social Security in Spanish, but Social Security actually covers health and everything else. And it's not the polished hospitals that you have here. If you want a polished hospital, you pay a very small fee for insurance and you can have the same quality of health care you have in the United States. But if you're just an average Panamanian who has a very small job, can't afford insurance and anything, you're taken care of. You have a hospital that you can go to. You have health care. We in America don't have that. We are now going through the coronavirus, and I want those guys that just checked in, a whole bunch of people just checked in. Those of you that have just checked in, please go ahead and share this program right away and on your walls everywhere else. But here's the deal, brothers and sisters. This is important, right? We are going to be, everybody looking at the death rates only. When those people are dead, they were the sacrificial lambs. But they're dead now. Their suffering is over. Their responsibilities are over. It's all over. The people that survived coronavirus, The people that survived the hospital bill, or the people that survived, they're going to get a hospital bill. And when, yesterday, it is funny, right? Because yesterday I was, inside of the bedroom, and thing came over the screen. And over the screen it said, this guy, 124 or 25 days in the hospital. And he made it, and he came out, and he's happy. I lived. And you know what's so interesting? I swear, this is the first thing that I thought when he came out singing that he lived and he was happy, that the family was there by his side to bring him back alive or whatever. My first thought was, if that were me, I don't know that I would have wanted to live, because what he has not yet seen is what an ICU bill for 125 days looks like. My daughter had a stroke in January, and I mean, great that she's probably 90% recovered, didn't lose motor or anything like that, just she lost a little piece of she lost half her vision, and she's got it back to 90% now. Just her emergency and ICU bill, she was there for, I think, 4 days in the hospital. I think that her nominal rate was, I think she told me, $70,000. $70,000. 3 or 4 days. The university health system is going to take care of, I think, most of that. And then there will be a part that she's responsible, part that she will not be able to pay because she's a medical student. But my point is, the corrupt system that we have right now that puts us in that type of situation, and that we have people right now, all these people that don't want government involvement. They don't want to have Medicare for all. In the book, I was doing a whole lot of chapters in the book last night, and I was talking about all these people that I've convinced about, I guess Medicare for all is really something that we should have. I guess it's something that we should have. Because people just don't get it. The lack of our leaders ensuring that we are educated. And that's what we are here for at Politics Done Right, folks. That's why we are here at Politics Done Right, to do our part. Because there are very few right now that are out there. When I say very few, I'm talking about mainstream corporate media. It's not that the people that work for them don't want to do it. They know all this. I mean, what I'm talking about isn't rocket science. What I'm talking about isn't an unknown to people who are equipped and read this stuff. It's not an unknown. The problem is the rest of America has so much to do. They keep you busy. They make sure you have to work. They work more so than necessary. They make sure to underpay you. They make sure to keep you confused. They make sure to keep you scared. And they keep you in all these different states so that you are unable to think. So, I have a whole lot. I know most of my neighbors around here are probably mad that we're not opening up the schools and that the kids can't go back to schools. And the normal thing to be is to really excoriate your neighbors, excoriate those crazy right-wing nuts. I can't do that. I feel empathy. Is it empathy? No, sympathy. It will be sympathy for them. That's what I really genuinely from the heart feels. Because it is difficult to have been so hoodwinked that you don't even realize it. Because you put your trust into entities who were undeserving of that trust. So what is the solution? The solution is to constantly be respectful. The solution is to constantly try to attract their faith. The solution is to constantly try to say, please, for every time you can point out that, hey, that is happening because we don't have this. Use present day examples as to why. And as I was writing that book last night, I was pulling up a lot of my old blogs to add to the book, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, this worked. Yeah, this guy that I talked about immigration, he was so convinced he wrote an immigration part. That's in the book. Oh, wait a minute. When we spoke about Medicare for All on this program, people got it. Oh, that's in it. So what I'm trying to say to all my listeners that are here, and please share this stuff, is let's not let the plutocracy win by just thinking that the people that don't agree with us or don't see the light, they're just a whole bunch of you know what. Let's not do that. Let's go ahead and keep in our minds that you are enlightened. If you believe this and you validate what I'm saying, and notice I'm saying, don't take what I say at face value until you built up some trust in me. If you built up some trust, yeah, you can take it and run with it. But I try to tell people, don't just take things at face value. Do a little bit of research on your own. Validate the people that you are using as validation. I've validated those that I use as validation. There are a lot of people that I've used as validation that I've first validated. It's important, especially in a system that depends on keeping you confused, a system that depends on lying to you, a system where many profit from your willful ignorance. And note why I call it willful ignorance is that you have to be willing to remain ignorant. You have to be willing to remain ignorant. And there are certain intrinsics that cause that, but it doesn't have to be permanent. It doesn't have to be fatal. It doesn't have to be suicidal. It doesn't have to be. So, how do we solve the problem? We always talk about the problems, but how do we solve the problems? And there are solutions, but the solutions are not based on one person having a solution. Believe it or not, the solution is exactly what I'm doing here, because we're not over the cliff yet, right? We are not over the cliff yet. What we have to do, and in the stuff that I'm writing, I kind of talk about how I talk to people and earn people's trust first, right? Is that person that in normal times, or that you have a tendency that you want to disregard, you want to hate, the first thing you got to think about it is they could be you. You could have been the one that had fallen for the snow job. You could have been the one whose condition had created the conditions necessary to make you less than. You could have been that person. You're not, but you could have been. And in that regards, then have empathy for those that you're trying to help. Remember when you had kids, and your kids, you're telling your kids the right thing, but they're just obstinate. They are not listening to you. They don't want to hear you. They don't want to hear you. And after that, they sit back one day and come back and tell you, wow, Dad, as I opened as you showed me respect and gave me that space needed to do what I needed to do, then everything came into play. Everything then came into play. We just got 2 entries into a system. One that comes and it says COVID-19 is a hoax, the right wing, and by dumb. I don't know what that means. I don't know if your statement there is meant to be a joke or not. I assume it's meant to be a joke. Taking care of people first is communism. Really? I guess you're being funny. Because taking care of people first, I think, is, if you're a Christian, is something Jesus says. Is if it's a Muslim, it is something that have always been preached. So I don't think so. Oh yeah, I thought it was a joke, dumb done. Thank you, because you sounded smart. Now, the what's not a joke is from Mike Cisak, and I'm still hoping someday Mike Cisak is going to get out of the fog of ignorance. Because right now, my good friend Mike Cisak, I love the guy. He's here often, but he says, anyone has an education in economics knows, this is what he says, I need to say that. Anyone who has an knows that M4, Medicare for All doesn't work. Any top-down design has always failed. And the fact that he says Medicare for All is a top-down design proves that he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? We can actually prove that Medicare for All, that the top-down design is the private insurance companies, right? Because they sit on top, they decide what a plan looks like, and then they tell everybody else to abide. Medicare for All simply says everybody has access to health care. Go find your doctor. Go find if the doctor says that procedure is necessary, we do that. So I mean, the thing that gets, when I talk about willful ignorance, that is where my good listener, Mike Cisak, is being willfully ignorant. Because if I say we have Medicare for All, that says, hey, your medical bills will be paid for. And by the way, doctors learn the theory of ethics. In other words, not capitalism. Doctors learn ethics. Capitalist doctors use medicine as the widgets to make money. But real doctors follow the Hippocratic oaths not to do harm. And pharmaceutical companies are capitalist countries that create drugs just for the sake of making money, while universities create the research necessary to create the baseline of our drugs. Remember that, people. Remember, the drugs that are being developed for the coronavirus right now was paid for by you. He gave $1 billion to a company in England and $2 billion to build factories to get this stuff done. And Bill Gates gave several $1 billion to build factories around the world so that we get it right away. So again, the reality, really, remember what I talk about, they have to institute a whole lot of isms into the argument so that we keep people dumb, right? Because many people don't know that. Many people don't know that all these drugs are being developed by our tax dollars. Many people don't know that a lot of these factories are taking tax stipends to do the work, and then when they're making their big profits, even though should be considered big investors into the development, we don't get a penny. All the profit goes to those few people who own the corporations and who are shareholders. A lot of people don't know that. They just hear the top story. These drug prices are high because we want to have a lot of research and developments for the next wonder drug. The thing about it is we haven't had a wonder drug in decades. And all wonder drugs have always started at universities. And you know why wonder drugs start at universities? Wonder drug starts at universities because corporations don't take unnecessary risk. The funny thing about it is for us to have this crazy, sick, immoral medical system, you have to speak out of several sides of your mouth. You have to, at one time, support socialism, and on the other side, support unfettered capitalism. Whenever you're talking about getting money from the government to help you develop a drug, it is socialism for the corporations. And whenever it's about making a big profit, it's always about capitalism for the corporation. We got to get it right. And the reason I beg people to share these things is that most people aren't hearing this story, not even when they're listening to mainstream media. But anyhow, I'm going a little bit over because we had that break in we had about a 5-minute break. So what I need to do right now is tell you that this show needs your support. We are a program, this is now, in the case of Politics Done Right, myself, this is now what we do. And we constantly ask people to become supporters of this program. There was a time that we could support these programs just on the ads from our websites, and that's the reason why I was able to say, hey, I'm giving up my company so that I can go ahead, since my website is doing so well, I can give up on my software company where we did things. And guess what corporations did? Corporations said, now that we got you, we've taken 90% of your ad dollars. So we decided to change the model. We decided to change the model. We were forced to change the model. And the model of having this program where we can enlighten people is now where we ask those people who watch us, who share us, who do all these things with us, to become partners by becoming subscribers. Tiny little bits. If you're on YouTube, you can always Give us at your convenience, frequently or non-frequently. Click on that $ and say, I'm going to give you a super chat. And we are going to support you in that way. But one of the best methods that we ask you to do as well is to go to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon and become a patron of our program. Another way to do it is to do it via PayPal, and that is simply going to politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. We just got, in the last couple of weeks, authorization from Facebook to also accept membership at Facebook. I think we only have 5 now, but we need hundreds. I don't know, at Patreon we probably have 126 subscribers. I think on PayPal, I don't recall how many we have, but we need over 1,000 subscribers to make us viable in the long run. And so we're building, taking us a few years to build, but I have faith that you guys will support. You can support us via Facebook by going to politicsdoneright.com/Facebook, politicsdoneright.com/Facebook. And you can always shop at our store by going to politicsdoneright.com/store, politicsdoneright.com/store. And at the store, you can get things like our Politics Done Right cups. And we have several cups. Not only this one that says Politics Done Right. We have cups that say we support independent media. We have it with the squad. We also have T-shirts with the squad and all that kind of stuff on. We have books. Yeah, books. That's right, books. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Book, is my signature book on how the economy really works in an easy to understand manner. You read that book, you'll never have somebody like Mike Cisak tell you that it's impossible for Medicare for All to work. In fact, you'll say, we better hurry and get to Medicare for All. And then, of course, we have, I've had my weight problems as I lose weight and be fit now. Folks, look, I know you have a lot of places you could be if you wanted to. I thank you so kindly for spending this time with me. I could not do it without you. Hey, I just got it. You've got 100 messages today with our chat screen. Thank you guys for commenting and having fun. I think I'm going to tweet that out. At least it's telling me, hey, tweet that you got over 100 messages. Okay, I tweeted that I got over 100 messages. So I thank you for being here with me. We'll be back on Monday. More than likely, I will, I think I have some interviews set up for this weekend as well. But also, I may do a show this weekend. I'm not sure. Things are so crazy right now. By the way, store.politicsandright.com is on the screen if you want to go ahead and see the kinds of things that we have. I usually run it a little bit so people can see what we have here. But I may go ahead and do another show over the weekend. Depends on how much work I have. I'm still working on the book. I hope to have the book. I mean, I don't know. I'm up to 60-something pages. It's probably going to be about 100 pages by the time I'm done. And that one will be released, I hope, pretty soon. It kind of preempted the book, Utopia book. And the reason it preempted the Utopia book is the Utopia book is it's permanent. When I say permanent, I mean it is a lot of things that we have to do, and I have a few chapters online already. You guys who are members have access to that already. But this book about how to talk to the right wingers, I think is important between now and November. So I want to get it out in for sure in August, just like I did with As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. That was during the big fight with Obamacare and trying to find a way to express that to people. Anyway, folks, I thank you so kindly for being here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel. And please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.